this, congratulations for making it this far. It means that you've done a lot of work. I know that there's been a lot of reading and a lot of Blackboard assignments and those sorts of things that you've partaken in. You've now worked your way through a couple of exams, and if you're still standing at this point in the semester, then there's a pretty good chance that you'll be standing still at the end. In Area 9, as we sort of move our way toward the final weeks of the semester, we will be contrasting, and you'll be reading about two significant missionary efforts of the late 1800s, the rather limited success of missionaries to the Middle East, and the tremendous success of missionaries in Korea. The impact of these efforts is still seen in many ways today. The Middle East, as you are probably aware, is one of the least evangelized areas on the globe. What scholars will sometimes refer to as the 1040 window, this sort of stretch of land that covers the Middle East and North Africa and Southern Asia that's largely unevangelized. So the Middle East is a big part of that 1040 window. Meanwhile, South Korea is one of the great missionary success stories and is, according to some sources, the largest missionary sending country in the world today, surpassing even the work of the United States. Depending on who you read, those numbers go back and forth. But South Korea essentially is right up there with North America in terms of the number of missionaries that they're appointing and sending out. And soon, South Korea will certainly surpass what the United States is doing currently. One thing that this reality reminds us of is the pervasive influence of Islam throughout the Middle East. From the time of Muhammad's revelations in the early 600s and the beginning of an Islamic kingdom by around 630, Islam has been closely linked with Middle Eastern kingdoms. And more often than not throughout history, there was a single powerful kingdom ruling over the entire Middle East. The nations that we speak of today, like Saudi Arabia and Iran and Iraq and Kuwait, all those were not even present at the time until they were more artificially created in the 1900s after colonialism and the British and others sort of left and moved out of that area. As a result of all of that, this sort of idea of a single kingdom ruling over the area, the Middle East had a 1,200-year love affair with Islam before Protestant missionaries began showing up in the 1800s. So maybe we shouldn't be overly surprised that Muslims were not lining up to convert to Christianity. Their faith was deeply ingrained and an inseparable part of their culture. And because of the historical tragedy of the Crusades that largely pitted Christians against Muslims over a 150-year time period, Muslims had not forgotten what it was to have Christians come knocking at their doors. As a result, Christians faced then and continue to face now significant difficulties when entering predominantly Muslim lands. The situation in Korea was the polar opposite. Korea was largely isolated from Western influence for much of its history, and the Korean peninsula was open to the arrival of Westerners in the late 1800s. Confucianism and Buddhism, which had been a significant part of Korean life for a long time, by the 1800s, those had moved to the periphery of society, and a religious gap remained in Korea. Politically, things were changing in Korea. The king had embraced Western technology of the time period. Western influence, Western medical advancements. And so this combination of factors made Korea good soil for the emergence of Christianity. And because of the unique methodology embraced by many of the missionaries who came to Korea in the late 1800s, the church was able to develop strong roots deep in Korean soil. Here, the missionaries allowed Christianity to become authentically Korean, and the results and growth of Korean Christianity in the last 100 plus years is simply remarkable. In the next video, we will examine more closely this missionary methodology called the Nevius Method, which you'll read about in the second part of your readings from Tucker for this week, and the tremendous success that this method brought to Korea during this time period.